Imagine, as a defender, how much you'd learn by being in Italian football.
One of us didn't learn a lot, did they, when they were in Italy?
That's because we had a strikers coach, mate. That's why.
When I was in Italy, I learned... Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with me, Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer and Micah Richards. With the Champions League group stages coming to a close, it's been, let's say, an exciting week of football once again. I must say, Alan, watching the game last night, I was really cheering Newcastle on. I mean, it was talk about a roller coaster of different positions and emotions. It was quite something, and I really felt for you boys at the end.
You sound pretty genuine.
Genuinely. I know we had fun and we had banter at each other's teams and at our own expense, but I did actually. It must have been devastating to be there in a way, but also probably quite thrilling in the early stages.
No, it was amazing. Started off with being in the pub at 4 o'clock and then heading to the ground at about 6:30. And the atmosphere was just brilliant again. It was great to see everyone out with their flags and scarves and in great voice, and everyone was up for it. And they made a really good start. I mean, the first half was pretty tight, and Joe Linton got his goal. It was a great strike, but They got a bit, I don't know, they got a bit schooled, I think. It was so open, that second half. And it wasn't meant to be, but hopefully it'll be a great learning curve for them. It's been a great few months in the Champions League and loads to talk about. Look, where Newcastle were to where Newcastle now, I mean, even us just talking about nights against AC Milan and PSG and Champions League has been amazing. So hopefully that's given everyone inside the club a taste for what can be and what hopefully will be. But people now have to be a little bit patient as well, because I think we also need to remember that Newcastle are way ahead of schedule. And I think this season was always likely to be a correction season, which is why I said if they finish fifth, it would be a remarkable achievement. So it is what it is. Got to get back. Got to get back to the game on Saturday, Fulham, and then Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. So
you sound like a manager. Don't take each game.
You've just got to have a bit of reality, though, haven't you?
No, I must say though, I was watching the game with about 10-15 minutes to go, and obviously if either side was looking to get that winner, because there was a point where, you could go through to the Champions League. But I was sitting there thinking, I think the Europa League's a really good result for Newcastle here. If they stick at it, rather than go so gung-ho that you completely risking being out of Europe altogether. Because yes, I can understand it because the crowd are right behind you. Everybody wants you to go for that win. It will be an extraordinary performance, really, to get through what was clearly the most difficult group to qualify from. But I just thought to myself, the Europa League would be a really good result for Newcastle, because you'd be massively proud of the fact that you've stayed in Europe despite being in that group, and secondly, it's a tournament that I think you could conceivably win. You'd be one of the favourites to win a trophy, whereas the Champions League, in all reality, Newcastle are not ready to win a competition like that. So I just thought, understandably so, because of the emotions of the night. But I just thought if there'd been a little bit more, yes, try and get the winner, but at the same time, don't just throw everyone forward so you're so open to the counter attack.
Yeah, I thought exactly the same. Totally agree. I mean, Milan had to win the game, so they were wide open. They were starting to put 3 and 4 men forward as well themselves.
Well, they had to go and win it.
They had to go and win the game. Yeah, and I mean, it was like one of those last days of the season when the result is swirling around the ground from the other game, Dortmund against PSG. It was like, Dortmund has scored. Then the crowd were all up and cheering, and then it was like, PSG have just scored and equalised, and then there was a rumour going around PSG, so it was like, oh my God.
Well, they
did.
They scored a goal on Mbappe, but then he was given just offside as well. That would have probably gone.
So yeah, I was like you guys. I was thinking, well, I don't know. I don't think the Europa is a bad spot to be in. You know, finishing third in this tough group. But hey, it wasn't meant to be.
What about Tomori? How good was Tomori?
Really good.
His goal line clearance, commanding of the box, his late run when he hit the post. I was looking at English centre-halves, and like I said the other day, I don't think we were blessed in that position, and I don't want to get too excited just after one game, but that performance on a European stage shows he's got the courage, and when he's at his best, he can definitely play at this level.
Yeah, he played well, didn't he? Looked really good.
Where are you, Mike? Are you in a caravan or something? Sounds like it.
Does it sound like I'm in a caravan, does it?
Well,
I'm in Mayfair.
I don't know what caravans sound like when you're inside them, but I don't know. You're in a hotel.
I'm in Mayfair. I'm in a service department in Mayfair. I've been here for 3 nights. I've been down here since Monday night. First it was radio, and then the Champions League.
Suspect. You're in a service apartment in Mayfair and you've been there for 3 nights. What's going on, Micah?
Have you been serviced then?
Oh, dear. Tomori, Southgate sort of brought him back in a little bit. And what do you he's got to be a contender for actually a place in the England team, hasn't he?
I would say so. I mean, like you said, we don't want to be reactionary because I do really like Dunk. I think Dunk's really got something to offer. We like Gehi as well. Yeah. I think we always picked him to be in the starting 11. Maguire's turned his form round, even though Man United have not been playing the best. But I do like the look of Tomori. If someone's playing Champions League football, you've got to give them a go. And that's why we said in the friendlies, it would be really nice to give these players a run out. So if they do get the shirt, they're ready. And I believe he's ready. Yeah,
I don't think we're being reactionary with Tomori. We've mentioned him many times. You in particular, Micah. I think there's something... there's an element of truth, certainly in terms of overall football supporters, when out of sight, out of mind, you're over there in Italy and not everyone, follows European leagues perhaps like some of us do. But he's definitely maturing into excellent play. And the fact that he's one of the most important players at a club like Milan, who are flying in Serie A as well, speaks volumes for him. And imagine, as a defender, how much you'd learn by being in Italian football. The masters of the defensive game in many ways, Catenaccio and all that. I know the game in Italy's changed to a degree, and it's kind of far more attack-minded than it used to be, but you definitely learn a lot, wouldn't you?
One of us didn't learn a lot, did they, when they were in Italy?
That's because we had a strikers coach, mate. That's why.
Yeah.
I wanted a defenders coach. I turned up with, and Montella was there. He just wanted to play out from the back.
Yeah.
I was like, what's that?
When I was in Italy, I learnt shit. So for Newcastle now, Alan, what do they need to kind of take that next step forward?
Well, ultimately, they're going to need better players. But it's just happened so quick for Newcastle, hasn't it? No one expected them to get into the top 4 last year, and because of that, there has to be a bit of realism. And I'm not suggesting there isn't from Newcastle fans, because I think there is, and there will be patience, because they're way ahead of schedule, and that. I just hope they're not a victim of their own success in terms of that, because it's happened so quickly. There's no way that 2 years ago you'd have said Newcastle playing PSG and AC Milan and all these great games in the Champions League. You would have said no chance. It's far too quick. But it has happened, and it's reality. So they're way ahead of schedule. But to get to that next level, obviously you're going to need better players.
Yeah, they're victims of their own success in a way, but they're also victims of that appalling decision, which... Yeah. I think we were all thinking about that in the last 15 minutes of that game.
Yeah, but hey, it happens. But there you go.
Yeah.
Got to move on.
You have. Manchester City played yesterday as well. Obviously, you put out kind of a second string, lots of young players, and 2 of them caught the eye. I think finally we might have found a really, really good Manchester City Micah. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, is a young man, Kate, made his kind of Champions League start, Micah Hamilton. Did you know much about him, Micah? He's not.
He's been on the bench a couple of times this season. You hear whispers that are in the academy, and he's played with Oscar Bob, and he's really close to Rico Lewis. And I didn't know if he could transform. You know, when you're watching academy football, someone gets loads of goals and loads of assists. And then when they come to first team football, it's almost like a headless chicken. So I didn't know whether he could cope at this level. But yesterday he showed he can cope. He's dangerous, electrified winger, could play left, could play right, could play in the middle as well. Got pace, got skill, and he can finish. Yeah. It was a joy to see coming, another academy graduate. We talk about how good Man City are winning trebles and how much money they can invest in. But it's nice to see young talent being given a chance. And he took his chance yesterday, so hopefully more games.
Was he named after you, Micah? Do you know? I mean, what's the age? How old is he? About 19, 20, something like that. And you're
20, I think he is.
You're what now?
35.
Nah, not quite. The maths don't work. You burst onto the scene You burst onto the scene 3 years later. Otherwise, you could have been the first child in the country to named after the great Micah Richards. It doesn't quite work. Though.
I'm going to DM him actually. I'm going to message him on Instagram and ask him why you call Micah. But the thing is, though, now. What's annoying me, everyone knows his name's Micah now, where I've had to deal for 15 years because of Frankie Bunn. Everyone calling me Micah.
Micah.
Just put it into the mixer. Stop dallying with it. Just put it into mixer. He's called me that for absolute years. And now everyone knows this guy's Micah, so I've paved the way for him.
Yeah, you have. It's really important. It's really weird that there's a lot of quite a few Brazilians called Lineker. They used Lineker because they were kind of born around the time of the 1986 World Cup. And it's really odd, including I believe a really famous kind of wrestler or UFC fighter or something. Yeah, very bizarre. But Mike is a much better name to call your child, I think, now that everyone knows how to pronounce it properly.
Licanino. That's
Right, we better stop before this goes any further.
Indeed. Well, Manchester United. I mean, they went out like Newcastle, finished bottom of the group, but certainly with. In a different style, in a different fashion, shall we say, to finish bottom of that group was pretty poor. And it just, we've done a lot of podcasts where we've talked about the current state of Manchester United, their demise in recent times, and that kind of epitomises it, doesn't it? Sums it up in a way.
God, it was so flat, wasn't it, at Old Trafford? I mean, the atmosphere was hardly any. It was dead. The performance was flat. I mean, there was just nothing. It was nothing to get excited about that performance the other night. They went out with a
whimper.
Whimpered, yeah. It was just all very, very flat and nothing to suggest that they wanted to stay in that competition. Obviously, they wanted to, but you just didn't see enough from anyone on the pitch. There wasn't enough urgency or anything, was there?
No.
Really poor.
No. I mean, Radcliffe is supposedly coming in. We don't, it's supposed to be quite imminent, and there's talk of Brailsford and stuff like that. But it's hard to envisage that changing it that much, isn't it? Really, because if you look at them now, how many players do they need to change things? Do you think half the team?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
And that takes time, it takes money, and it takes good recruitment And that, which is the same with any club. It's whatever your budget is, and theirs has been pretty big, I have to say, over the years, despite everything. But it just shows you how important recruitment is and getting it right, isn't it? In that sense,
I just think because of how stale it's been there for such a while, that standards have dropped so much that it is going to take a long time, or a good few seasons anyway, for them to get anywhere near back where they want to be and where they were.
Micah, what do you think?
You know what, we've talked so much, and we can pick out individuals, can't we, and say this player must go and that player must go, but like, it's just not good enough collectively, you know. I don't want to dig individuals out, because I don't think it's fair anymore. I think watching that game against Bayern, obviously they lost to Bournemouth at home, so they approached the Bayern game as basically, okay, we're not going to get stuffed tonight. It's almost like, when I was listening to Ten Hag after his interview, he said they played very well and they coped with... I'm thinking to myself, you're in the Champions League, you're going to give it absolutely everything you got. You might as well just go out with a bang. We've talked about teams now, not just sitting back and defending, and you got a chance. And Bayern was in second gear. There was times where Man United could have took the game to them, but they just didn't do it. They just need a freshen up. They need some positivity round the camp. And you know what they need more than anything? They need players with personality who can take responsibility. Forget what they can do technically and tactically. Someone who wants to be at Man United and actually care about being at the club, not just coming there for a wage, you know, and that's what they need. People who actually care. And I don't see that at this moment in time, collectively, not naming individuals, as a team. They just look so low on confidence, and it's going to be very difficult for them to get that back.
So a friend of mine asked me a question the other day. In fact, it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and obviously things have gone worse for Manchester United since then. He's a Man United fan, and he said to me, if you swap the two managers, Ten Hag with Pep Guardiola now, which side would be top by the end of the season between the two of them? I thought it was a good question.
Yeah.
What do you think? We will never know. It's obviously...
What was your answer? What was your answer, Gaz?
My answer was that I thought it'd be really close, and a damn sight closer than it is now. I think Pep's a genius. I think he'd get obviously initial bounce, and he's so clever with players. So I think it'd be fascinating, wouldn't it? If you just did that now and just see who was where. And there's not a massive gap between them at the moment. So in terms of points, in terms of where they both are as clubs, there's a chasm between them. But I thought it was an interesting question. Not one we'll ever have the answer to, but it would be quite fascinating to see where they both finish, because obviously, well, you know, Pep's arguably the greatest coach of all time. He'd have to be in that any debate about that, wouldn't he?
Yep. Absolutely, no doubt about that.
Yeah. Right, we've talked about the two clubs that finished bottom of their groups in the Champions League. Now, it'd be interesting to see. We've mentioned many times this season about the fact that it could well be 5 clubs that qualify for next season's Champions League. Different format, of course. It's like 2 big leagues. It's quite complicated, actually. In fact, we should probably do an episode at some point where we discuss and try and explain to people how that next season's Champions League works, because it's very, very different. But we were talking about the fact that a couple of the top leagues will have 5 clubs in. It'll be interesting to see whether the fact that 2 of our clubs have finished bottom, having said that 2 other clubs have finished top, and our clubs also are doing pretty well so far in the Europa League. So whether that will affect English football and the Premier League's coefficient, we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Yeah, I haven't got the answer to that. Unfortunately, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But there is talk about Premier League having 5 next season, or the top 5 being able to qualify. But I think it's done on the points thing, isn't it? Where you actually finish in the league. So you're right about the 2 clubs. I mean, City and Arsenal finishing top of their league might sort of make up for Newcastle and Manchester United finishing bottom.
Yeah, but I believe we fell a place yesterday after the results. So I think we're behind Spain. We was told yesterday in our stats. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, the permutations and towards the end of the season, because if we were to get that 5th spot, it'd be brilliant for English football. The top 4 have been going for so long, but we always talk about the teams emerging, your Newcastles, your Spurs, Liverpool getting back to the best, Arsenal and City. It'd be nice if we could have a top 5, but obviously we won't know until later on within the season.
Okay, let's take a little break. When we come back, we'll talk about the 2 teams that won their groups and 1 or 2 other subject matters as well. See you shortly. Welcome back to the Rest is Football with me, Gary Lineker, Micah Richards and Alan Shearer. Let's talk about Arsenal. Top the group, pretty comfortable, and their progress is solid, isn't it? They're continuing to improve. They're right at the top of the Premier League, just behind Liverpool, and through to the Champions League knockout stages. You can see an improvement under Arteta. They're on the rise, aren't they, Micah?
Yep, they are. And it's the Arsenal, if you're a gooder. Gary, let's get it right, please. It's not just Arsenal, it's the Arsenal. Anyway, in terms of their form.
Oh, blimey, they've qualified now. He's an Arsenal fan again.
But in terms of their form, it's actually strange talking about Arsenal. They've been brilliant, bought into what Arteta's doing. I don't think they're at the level this year as last year, but it could be taken in 2 ways. I think that could be a good thing because they've still got another gear to go. If you look at Arsenal's front 3 between Saka, Martinelli and Jesus, within the league, they only have 9 goals. So if they going to want to win the league, that's going to improve. But them being in and around it, having not scored that many goals, actually thinks, okay, if we get better, we can do this. In the Champions League group, no disrespect to the other teams in there, you expected them to go through. But it's how they're going through with flying colours is really good. Making some changes as well. You expect them to beat Lens, I think that's how you pronounce it. And Seville was a team where I thought would do a little bit better, coming bottom of the group with just 2 points. And then PSV have been a really good team in this competition. But to top that, it just gives them the confidence they need. Really going in the right direction, and long may it continue.
Well, Arsenal are the only team that have beaten PSV this season. They've been flying in Eredivisie. And then to get a draw away from home's pretty good.
I think the Arsenal fans and Mikel Arteta will be delighted with what's happened so far this season for them. Finishing top of their group, they're right in the title chase. Things are improving. Slightly different Arsenal, isn't it? That we've seen in the league anyway, in terms of defensively, not scoring as many goals. But no, I think everyone connected with Arsenal will say they're in a really good place and they're ready to go on and improve again.
I think most people would say, well, we say it about a lot of sides, don't we? But they're probably a seriously good goal scorer away from really starting to win a lot of things, aren't they?
Rumour has it, Ivan Toney.
Yeah, but Newcastle go for them as well, though, Alan, do you think? I suppose now they're out of Europe, then they might probably wait till the summer.
I would, if I was in terms of the recruitment at Newcastle. I think he's a really good player and it would be a really good option. And Newcastle need to improve in that department. They need another body in there. So I don't think there'll be any shortage of takers for Ivan Toney.
Yeah. Do you think he's the right style of centre forward for Arsenal?
Me? Do I think that? Yeah, I do. I think that with who they've got on either side down the flanks, then I think he would have a field day with crosses coming into the box. Yeah,
But
yeah.
They do get a lot of crosses in.
Exactly. He would love that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it's different now. It's a different Arsenal. If you look at the way they used to play last year with Martinelli and Saka on the wings, they used to have so much space, but because they're the danger men now, they're almost sort of doubling up on them, where before Saka would probably take on one or two. Now they've become more of a crossing team, trying to get out of tight areas. And he adds someone like Toney, like Alan says, with his physical power in the box, his heading ability. I think he suits Arsenal now. I really do.
I would agree. Interesting that Sevilla dropped out of European football, finishing bottom of that group because they've missed out, because they normally get the Champions League and then finish third in the group, slip down to the Europa League and win it. 7 times winners of that competition, and they're out of it now, which was a big surprise, really. And obviously we don't know, because we're talking on Thursday morning, not on Friday morning, about how our sides have done in the Europa League. But West Ham, Brighton, and particularly Liverpool would have to be probably the favourites in that competition.
Yeah, Liverpool look strong with the squad they have, with the experience that they have. Then they'll be without doubt one of the favourites and fancy themselves to go all the way and win at Liverpool.
Yeah, without doubt. I think it's Liverpool's competition now. The quality they're showing. We've got January window ahead as well. So, yeah, I would agree with Alan on that. I think it's down for Liverpool.
Well, that's Europa League sorted. Liverpool are going to win it. Who's going to win the Champions League? Who's going to win the Champions League? Obviously, we've got through the group stages. We know who's in the knockout. The draw is always interesting. And I always think the Champions League really starts, doesn't it, in February, once you get the knockout, particularly the second legs of fantastic stuff. Who's your favourite?
Real Madrid and City.
City have to be favourites, don't they?
Yeah, they've got De Bruyne to come back as well, if his timescale's correct. So he will, without doubt, improve them as well. So, yeah, those two again.
Yeah. The only thing I would say about Real Madrid, I mean, obviously we've been following how brilliant Jude Bellingham has done this season, and he scored again, didn't he? And he's I think 16 goals now this season or something, or 16, 17 for Real Madrid, which is quite something, because he's not exactly an out-and-out striker, even though he's been played quite I suppose, in a very attacking position. It also perhaps, though, highlights the weakness in this Real Madrid side, that they haven't got they haven't really got an outstanding number 9.
You've got an outstanding manager, though.
We mentioned Pep, didn't we? You're talking about all-time greats in terms of coaches, Ancelotti would have to be up there, wouldn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he goes to Brazil, which is expected, that he leads them to glory. That way, I think.
I'm going to throw in a curveball.
Go on.
After watching PSG away at Dortmund yesterday, Kylian Mbappe, when he's in this sort of form, but it's not only Kylian now. So before, when they've had Messi and Neymar, it was almost like there was just too many superstars. Who do you get the ball to? Now, with Zaire Emery in midfield, he is absolutely sensational. He's going to be another superstar if he's already not. We've known about him because Thierry Henry coached him at the 21s.
Yes.
He got his full senior call-up. Thierry Henry's hoping to have him for the Olympics as well next year. Barcola, another youngster who plays on the left or right side, really good. young attacking threat they've got there. They've got Kolo Muani, who's got pace, which then leaves gaps for Kylian Mbappe. And just as a team, that's the first time I've seen PSG as a team working away when they needed something, because it was going to be doom and gloom for PSG. It was going to be, since the takeover, I can't remember the exact year, but the first time it was not going to get into a knockout round, you know, and there was so much pressure and they dealt with the pressure very well. So I'm not going to say they win it, but they're going to be contenders, I would say.
I'd be amazed if they are. I'd be really surprised if they were. I mean, I obviously watched them closely at home when Newcastle played them and away. I haven't been convinced with them. I may be wrong, but I'd be amazed if they went all the way.
Thierry Henry told us about Zaire Emery, didn't he? Remember right at the start of the season when we had that two-part special with Thierry, which is still available, obviously, if you want to go and listen to that if you did miss it. But within that, well, I think we asked him the question, who's the up-and-coming player that you really like? And he plucked out Zaire Emery, and he's certainly not let him down so far. He's been absolutely sensational for PSG this season. I think they're a little bit short.
Unbelievable.
But you did say, Micah, that you don't expect them to win it. But I think it's they're not a team you'd want to probably draw in the last 16. That's for sure. How about Bayern Munich? They've got Harry Kane, who's been sensational for them.
Yeah, you would say so, but they can be on transition. Look, I'm using buzzwords now, but on the counter-attack, they don't defend counters very well. They're similar to Man City, where they dictate the ball and they've got such good players, but they leave themselves open. And you've seen that at the weekend when they lost in Germany, they conceded 5 goals and was talking about they won the XG, but you still got to defend properly. And I think the centre-halves get exposed a lot in that team. Mm-hmm. In terms of going forward, they'll always be able to score goals. We have no problem with that. But just defensively, in the right moments, can they deal with it? That would be my one question mark for Bayern.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Agreed, Micah.
Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Inter, Dortmund as well, and you've mentioned PSG. I think
impressed with Dortmund. I was.
Yeah,
I've been impressed with them.
I'm not sure they can win it though.
No, I don't think they will win it. But I've been impressed with them. Yeah, I'm not sure you'd want to draw them. I think their home and away would make it very difficult for any team. But I wouldn't expect them to win it. No.
Well, we look forward to the draw. There's been an interesting story that has, well, it's not emerged because it's within the UEFA rules about owners can't have 2 sides in the Champions League or the Europa League. So, for example, the fact that Manchester City owners, City Group as they're called, also own a number of clubs around the world, and one of those clubs is Girona. And I think the rules stipulate that the owners can't have more than one club in one competition. So what would happen is if Girona, who are currently 2 points clear at the top of La Liga, if they went on to win the title, which I have to say would be highly unlikely, and it would be, a story up there with Leicester's in terms of the surprise nature of it, that if they finish first and say Manchester City finish second in the Premier League, the team that will go into next season's Champions League would be Girona, not Manchester City, because they finished top of their league. So it throws something up as well. And also, if Radcliffe does join Manchester United, I'm not sure how much of the football club you need to own, but he also is involved with Nice, who are currently second in the French league. So, therefore, if Manchester United somehow finish 4th or 5th, then Nice would go through and not Manchester United, unless if I don't know if I don't know whether it's a percentage of a football club or it's all of the football club or 50% of the football club. We'll have to look at that. But it's an interesting story, isn't it? About because it's become much more common now, isn't it, for owners of football clubs to own a number of them. There's quite a lot of Premier League clubs that, particularly with American owners, that they own multiple football clubs. Yeah,
it's an interesting situation. I mean, I don't know what happened, but I'm obviously aware of who owns what and who could own what, and I'm aware that the UEFA rules in terms of the ownership that both clubs can't compete against each other. So I haven't got a clue what would happen.
Yeah. I wonder if it's me playing a bit cynical here, but right. So you've got, I don't know, 3 weeks left of the season, and Manchester City are second or third in the Premier League, and Girona are 2 points clear of La Liga. What do City's owners? What do they think? What do they do?
Maybe ask the Man City ambassador.
Well, then, for he'll know the answer. Micah.
I plead the fifth. No, but wasn't there a similar occasion? Wasn't there a similar thing with Salzburg and Leipzig? They was owned by the same brand, Red Bull, isn't it? Yeah, but then there was some complications around the ownership, and they had to remove some of the staff. I remember the story because I asked the same question. So look, we're not lawyers. We can't get into the technical side of things, but it will be interesting to see what happens. It really will. Because you want Girona to do well, because the success story is unbelievable. But you've got to have Man City in the Champions League. For sure you have. I
want to finish this episode. On Mondays we always do a moment of the weekend, but perhaps we could do a moment of the midweek. Sergio Ramos, did you see it? Scored a Panenka.
Yeah.
He was allowed to retake it after missing his original spot kick, and then he got booked for kicking the goalkeeper's hands when he was trying to get the ball back. But he is now the Champions League highest ever scoring defender. I mean, that kind of few minutes there sums up probably Ramos in many ways, doesn't it? I think he's one of the great defenders that, over the last 20 years in world football. Unbelievable player that you want on your side, but he's got a bit of housery in him. But he's also a player that can, score as this is the proof that he scores a lot of goals.
I think you probably summed him up perfectly. Yeah, he's one of these guys that you'd rather have him in your team than play against you.
Yeah,
definitely, for obvious reasons.
What a player!
From a defensive point of view, Micah, what are his strengths?
Oh, he's got absolutely everything. Ramos, whether it's leadership, whether it's reading the game, whether it's so calm on the ball. The favourite word that Danny Murphy uses all the time, that tenacity. And he's just got a cool head in front of goal from a defender's point of view. He's not got a cool head when it comes to picking up yellow cards. I think he's got over 150 yellow cards or something daft like that. I remember seeing a stat a couple of years ago in his career. But he is a legend of the game. Absolutely brilliant. Really good. Top player. And I actually like his housery as well.
Yeah.
It's good for football.
Yeah, I quite like a bit of housery. He's got plenty of red cards as well. Right, that's it from us for this week. Thank you for your continued support of the podcast. It's much appreciated. And, of course, please follow, subscribe, or whatever you do with these things. I'm never quite sure how it all works personally, which I should be because I've got a podcast business. But there we have it. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
That's goodbye from me. Have a good weekend.